Breaking news! It's just been confirmed, and it's generated a lot of buzz. Falcons fans, let's talk about it. Before we dive into this latest news, be sure to hit that like button to stay informed. We've got a lot to cover today, and I want to hear from you in the comments after we break it all down. So, here's the deal. Grady Jarrett is no longer an Atlanta Falcons player. Yes, you heard that right. Just hours after the team released him, the two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle agreed to terms with the Chicago Bears on a 3-year, $43.5 million contract. And while this move may have been necessary from a financial standpoint for the Falcons, it still stings. Jarrett has been the cornerstone of this defense for a decade, and now he'll be donning navy and orange instead of red and black. For those who may have missed it, the Falcons decided to part ways with Jarrett to free up $16.5 million in salary cap space. He had no more guaranteed money left on his deal, so Atlanta made a tough decision. This is one of those moves that makes you shake your head, not because it doesn't make sense on paper, but because it's a stark reminder that the NFL is a business first and foremost. Loyalty only goes so far when there's money involved, and Jarrett's departure is proof of that. Now, let's talk about what we're losing here. Jarrett may be 31, but he still made a huge impact on the field. Last season, he may have only recorded 2.5 sacks, but don't let that fool you. He was still one of the most disruptive defensive tackles in the league. According to Pro Football Focus, Jarrett ranked in the 90th percentile among defensive tackles and pressures, finishing with 34. That's not an easy thing to replace. And if you look at the bigger picture, this guy was never just about stats. His presence alone forced offensive lines to adjust their blocking schemes. He was the type of player who demanded a double team, freeing up opportunities for his teammates to make plays. That kind of impact isn't measured in sack numbers. It's measured in how much chaos he created on a down-to-down basis. And now, the Bears get to benefit from that while the Falcons have a major hole to fill in the middle of their defensive line. This move also comes at a time when Atlanta is already dealing with depth issues at the position. Eddie Goldman is also gone, leaving the team with some serious decisions to make on how to rebuild the interior of that defensive line. Will they turn to free agency to find a replacement? Will they invest heavily in the draft? These are the questions that need answers, and fast. Meanwhile, over in Chicago, this move is a big win. The Bears' defense already showed flashes of being a dominant unit last season, and adding Jarrett only makes them stronger. He'll be lining up next to Jervin Dexter Sr., a young defensive tackle with a lot of potential. Chicago's defense also features Montez Sweat on the edge, along with linebackers T.J. Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. And let's not forget about their secondary, which includes guys like Jaquan Brisker and Jalen Johnson. This unit was already trending in the right direction, and now, with Jarrett in the mix, they're looking even scarier. The Bears weren't messing around this offseason. Along with Jarrett, they also signed former Colts edge rusher Dayo Odeyingbo to a 3-year, $48 million deal. And on the offensive side of the ball, they've been making moves to protect their young quarterback, Caleb Williams. They brought in Falcons center Drew Dalman, former Chiefs veteran Joe Thuney, and ex-Rams tackle Jonah Jackson. They're clearly in win-now mode, and landing a veteran leader like Jarrett only reinforces that. But let's bring it back to the Falcons. Where does this leave us? Well, there's no sugarcoating it. This is a tough loss. We're talking about a guy who spent his entire career in Atlanta, a player who was a leader on and off the field, and someone who bled red and black. His departure leaves a void, and how the Falcons feel it will say a lot about the direction of this franchise. The reality is that this team is in the middle of a major transformation. New leadership, new roster decisions, and now, a key veteran gone. It's clear that the front office is focused on reshaping this team, but the question is, will these moves actually make us better? Will saving that $16.5 million help bring in the pieces we need to truly compete? Or will we look back at this decision and regret letting Jarrett walk? So now, Falcons fans, I want to hear from you. Was cutting Jarrett the right move? Do you think the team will find an adequate replacement? And what's your confidence level in the front office right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now, if the Falcons were hoping to trade Kirk Cousins, those chances just took a major hit. The Cleveland Browns, widely considered the most likely destination for Cousins, just made a quarterback move that throws a wrench in Atlanta's plans. The Browns acquired former first-round pick Kenny Pickett, and while that doesn't completely rule them out as a potential landing spot for Cousins, it certainly complicates things. This move raises a lot of questions. The Browns already have Deshaun Watson and have now added Pickett while also trading for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. If they were indeed planning to take a shot at Cousins, this move doesn't seem to align with that strategy. Sure, Cousins is still a huge upgrade over Pickett, but was their original plan to pair Cousins with a rookie? If so, does adding Pickett change the equation? On top of that, Cleveland sent away a 5th-round pick in the deal. That might not sound like much, but in the grand scheme of things, it makes a potential Cousins trade less likely. Every pick matters in negotiations, and losing that asset could be the move that pushes Atlanta towards simply cutting their losses and releasing Cousins outright. The Falcons are clearly in a standoff with their veteran quarterback. They seem willing to pay his roster bonus that's due in the coming days because they still believe they can get value for him. But as we move deeper into free agency, the number of teams looking for a veteran quarterback continues to shrink. If a trade partner doesn't emerge soon, Atlanta may be forced to make a difficult decision. But let's shift gears and talk about another major area of need for the Falcons, the defensive line. While Atlanta has been relatively quiet in the first hours of the NFL's legal tampering period, new opportunities have emerged. Two recently released defensive linemen could become serious targets for the Falcons in free agency, Larry Ogunjobi and Zadarius Smith. Both of these guys are experienced veterans, and while they're over 30, they could still bring real value to Atlanta on the right deals. The Pittsburgh Steelers cut Ogunjobi, and the Detroit Lions parted ways with Smith. These are two names that the Falcons front office should be looking at closely. Ogunjobi is an interesting option. He's played for 3 AFC North teams, the Browns, Bengals, and Steelers, and has been a consistent force on the interior defensive line. In 2024, he recorded 41 combined tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, and 1.5 sacks. While those numbers don't jump off the page, his ability to clog up the middle and generate interior pressure is something the Falcons could use, especially after releasing Grady Jarrett to clear cap space. At his peak, Ogunjobi put up 7 sacks in a single season back in 2021. Over the last 3 years, he's averaged 2 sacks per season with Pittsburgh, showing he still has something left in the tank. The question is whether the Falcons see him as a viable piece to rebuild their defensive front. Then there's Zadarius Smith. At 32 years old, he's had a more decorated career than Ogunjobi, and he might be an even better fit for Atlanta. This is a guy who has posted double-digit sack seasons 3 times, 2019, 2020, and 2022, and made the Pro Bowl each of those years. Even last season, he was still highly productive, racking up 9 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, and 17 quarterback hits while splitting time between the Browns and Lions. Detroit picked up Smith at the trade deadline, sending away 2 draft picks to acquire him. But in a surprising move, they've now decided to release him, freeing up $5.7 million in cap space. That decision puts him on the open market, and the Falcons should absolutely be making a call. The reality is that Atlanta needs help along the defensive line, and they need it fast. While the team will almost certainly target young defensive talent in the draft, free agency is an opportunity to bring in proven veterans who can contribute immediately. The Falcons currently hold the number 15 overall pick, and many believe they'll target an edge rusher. But adding a veteran like Smith or Ogunjobi wouldn't just help fill an immediate need. It would also give the team flexibility heading into the draft. Ideally, the Falcons will take a 2-pronged approach, adding young talent through the draft while securing a veteran presence in free agency. And honestly, why stop at just one? If the price is right, targeting both Ogunjobi and Smith could be a move that helps solidify this defense for the upcoming season. So, Falcons fans, what do you think? Are you worried about the team's ability to trade Kirk Cousins now that the Browns have added Kenny Pickett? Do you think the Falcons should just cut their losses and move on? And when it comes to the defensive line, would you rather see Atlanta go after Ogunjobi, Smith, or both? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. The offseason is just getting started, and there's plenty more to come. Go Falcons!